I never thought a simple dinner with friends would change the course of my marriage. It started out light-hearted, everyone laughing, telling stories, sharing inside jokes. But then my wife, Emily, leaned back in her chair with a glass of wine in her hand and smirked at me. She said, "Well, at least my ex was bigger." The whole table went silent. At first, I thought she was joking, some tasteless attempt at humor. But then she laughed, nudged her friend beside her, and carried on as if nothing had happened. I froze. My ears rang, my chest burned, and my pride shattered in front of everyone. I forced a smile, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. That wasn't just a joke, it felt like a confession. That night, as she fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My mind replayed her words again and again. And then I remembered the late-night texts, the sudden work trips, and the way she guarded her phone lately. Her joke wasn't just cruel. It was a hint. And I was about to uncover the truth. The next morning, Emily acted as if nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her purse, and rushed out the door with the same bright smile she always wore. But I couldn't shake the words from my head. I decided to pay attention. Every detail mattered now. Her phone never left her side anymore, not even when she went to the bathroom. She kept her laptop locked with a password I didn't know, even though we used to share everything. And her so-called late meetings. They seemed to happen more often than not. That evening, while she was showering, I finally caught a break. Her phone buzzed on the counter, lighting up with a notification. I didn't touch it, but I saw enough. A man's name popped up. No work title. No company. Just his first name and a heart emoji. My stomach dropped. When she came out of the shower humming, I acted normal. I smiled, I made dinner, I let her talk about her busy day. But inside, a plan was forming. If she thought humiliating me in public was funny, I was going to show her what real exposure felt like. And I wasn't going to confront her until I had undeniable proof. The following days, I played my role carefully. I acted like the same old husband, supportive, distracted, harmless. But behind the scenes, I started piecing things together. First, I checked our shared bank account. Odd hotel charges appeared, always on the nights she claimed to have late meetings. Small amounts, too subtle to raise suspicion, but enough to tell me she wasn't where she said she was. Next, I remembered she once backed up her photos to the family computer, but hadn't touched it in months. I turned it on, and there they were, recent uploads she probably forgot were syncing. Pictures of dinners, cocktails, and blurred selfies with someone who wasn't me. Still, I wanted more. I reached out to an old friend who worked in IT security. I didn't need him to hack anything, I just needed advice. With his guidance, I learned how to check her phone's cloud data through our family plan. That's when I found the messages. Heart emojis. Late-night promises. And one message that made my blood run cold. Last night was amazing, he still doesn't suspect a thing. I sat there staring at the screen, shaking with both rage and clarity. Now I knew. But instead of exploding, I smiled. Because her little joke about her ex being bigger had given me the perfect idea. It was time to prepare my revenge, and it was going to be savage. I didn't want a screaming match. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me broken. If Emily was going to betray me, then she was going to pay for it in the most humiliating way possible, calm, calculated, and undeniable. I began laying the groundwork. First, I made copies of everything, the photos, the bank charges, and the cloud messages. I stored them on a hidden flash drive, safe from her reach. Then, I waited. Our anniversary was coming up in just 2 weeks, and Emily was already planning a dinner party with friends and family. The same people who had heard her joke at my expense would be there. It was perfect. Meanwhile, I acted like nothing was wrong. I brought her flowers. I cooked her favorite meals. I even offered to help with the party preparations. She smiled at me like I was the most loyal husband in the world. And the more she believed I was clueless, the more reckless she became. One night, I overheard her on the phone. She whispered, "Don't worry, he won't find out. He's too blind." I almost laughed out loud. She had no idea I was already planning the show of her life, the night her carefully built lies would crumble in front of everyone. And I would be the one pulling the curtain. The night of our anniversary arrived. Emily was glowing, dressed in an elegant black dress, her smile wide as she welcomed our guests. She played the part of the perfect wife, pouring wine, laughing at jokes, and brushing her hand across my shoulder as if we were still the picture of love. I stayed calm. I smiled, chatted, and clinked glasses with family and friends. But inside, my heart pounded, not with nerves, but with anticipation. Everything was ready. As dessert was being served, Emily stood up to make a toast. "To my amazing husband," she said sweetly, "who has always stood by me. Tonight, I want to celebrate the years we've spent together and all the love we share." The room erupted with applause. People smiled. My chest tightened, but not from her words. From the knowledge of what I was about to do. When she sat back down, I rose slowly. "Thank you, Emily," I said, raising my glass. "But before we celebrate our future, I think it's only fair to be honest about the present." Her smile faltered. I pulled a small flash drive from my pocket and plugged it into the TV connected in the living room. Within seconds, the screen lit up, not with a slideshow of happy memories, but with screenshots of her messages, photos of her work trips, and her late-night promises to another man. Gasps filled the room. Forks clattered against plates. Emily's face went pale. I looked her in the eyes and said, "You joked about your ex being bigger. But the truth is, your lies are smaller than you think. Everyone deserves to see who you really are." The room went silent. And the revenge had only just begun. The silence in the room was deafening. Then came the whispers, shocked voices from friends, family, even her own sister. Emily leapt to her feet, her face flushed red. "This isn't what it looks like," she shouted, her voice trembling. He's twisting everything." But the evidence was right there on the screen, her own words, her own pictures, her own trail of betrayal. Her best friend covered her mouth in shock. My brother shook his head in disbelief. Even her father, who had always defended her no matter what, stared at her with a look I had never seen before, pure disappointment. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply said, "Emily, if it wasn't true, why did you save all of this? Why did you joke about your ex in front of everyone like it was funny? The only joke here is the one you've been playing on me, and on every person in this room." Emily's hands shook as she grabbed the remote and fumbled to shut the TV off. "Please, let's not do this here. Can we talk in private?" she begged. But the damage was already done. The room had seen the truth. And now, all eyes were on her, not me. Emily's eyes darted from face to face, searching for an ally. But no one came to her defense. Her best friend finally spoke up. "Emily, those messages had dates, locations, and even photos. You can't explain that away." Her father shook his head slowly. "I raised you better than this. To humiliate your husband like that? In front of everyone?" His voice cracked with anger and shame. Emily's voice broke. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. It didn't mean anything." I stood calmly, watching her crumble. "Funny," I said softly, "because the messages say otherwise. Last night was amazing, remember? Doesn't sound meaningless to me." Gasps echoed again. She looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Her mother turned away, refusing to meet her eyes. My sister muttered, "Unbelievable," under her breath. Emily tried one last desperate move. She stepped toward me, tears running down her cheeks. Please, please, we can work this out. Don't throw everything away over one mistake. I held her gaze, unflinching. You didn't just make a mistake, Emily. You made a choice. Again and again. And tonight, everyone gets to see exactly who you chose to be. The weight of the truth crushed her. She fell back into her chair, sobbing as the room looked on in stunned silence. But for me, it was only the beginning. The room stayed frozen for what felt like hours, though it was only seconds. Emily's sobs filled the air, but I wasn't moved. For too long, she had mocked me, lied to me, and thought she could keep getting away with it. I cleared my throat. Since honesty seems hard for Emily, I'll make it simple for everyone here. I pulled a small folder from my jacket and placed it on the table. Inside were printed copies of the messages, hotel receipts, and even the photos I had discovered. These, I said firmly, are for the lawyer. Papers are already in motion. Tonight is not only our anniversary dinner, it's also the last night she'll ever call me her husband. Emily gasped. You filed for divorce? Already? I nodded. The moment I had proof. I wasn't going to let you continue playing me for a fool. You joked about your ex being bigger, but the only thing that grew in this marriage was your lies. Her best friend looked away in disgust. Her father muttered something under his breath that sounded like shameful. The silence around her was louder than any shouting could have been. Emily reached out across the table, trembling. Please, don't do this here. Not in front of everyone. I leaned closer, my voice low but sharp. You did this in front of everyone the moment you mocked me. Tonight is only the truth catching up to you. The room erupted in murmurs. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Emily sat there trembling, her mascara running as she desperately tried to salvage what little dignity she had left. You don't understand, she whispered to the table. I was confused. I didn't mean for this to happen. But no one was listening anymore. My brother leaned forward, shaking his head. Confused? Emily, those messages weren't a mistake, they were a lifestyle. You didn't just slip once. You kept going back. Her best friend, the one she'd always confided in, finally spoke with a sharp edge. And all those times you laughed at him, made little digs, or rolled your eyes. Now I see why. You weren't just unhappy, you were betraying him behind his back while pretending to be the perfect wife in front of us. Emily buried her face in her hands. Stop, please, stop, but the words kept coming. Her father stood, his voice heavy with disappointment. You brought shame to yourself, to this family. And the worst part? He gave you everything. And you threw it away. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. I sat there, calm and steady, watching as the truth ate away at her carefully built image. For the first time, Emily wasn't in control of the narrative. Everyone saw her for who she really was. And no amount of excuses could save her now. As the murmurs grew louder, Emily suddenly stood up and grabbed my arm. Please, she whispered through gritted teeth, can we talk alone? Just 5 minutes. Please. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, but I nodded slowly and followed her into the hallway. She shut the door behind us, her hands trembling. Listen, she begged, her voice breaking, I made a mistake, yes, I messed up, but you don't have to end it like this. We can fix it. We can go to counseling. We can start over. I'll cut him off, I'll do whatever it takes. I stared at her, my expression unreadable. Counseling? I repeated. Emily, you weren't struggling with a moment of weakness. You built a whole second life behind my back. You laughed at me while you lied to me. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Her tears flowed faster. I still love you. You're my husband. Don't throw us away. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. No, Emily. You threw us away the moment you decided your affair was more important than your vows. Tonight wasn't me ending this. Tonight was me showing you what you did to yourself. Her face crumbled. She clutched my arm tighter, desperate. You can't just walk away. I gently pulled free from her grip. Watch me. Then I opened the door, stepping back into the dining room, leaving her standing there, broken, with nothing left to say. When I stepped back into the dining room, every eye turned toward me. Emily lingered in the hallway, too shaken to follow. The guests sat in silence, waiting to see what I would do next. I cleared my throat and spoke calmly, my voice steady. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I know this isn't what you expected. But I think it's important that the truth is never hidden. Not from me, and not from any of you. A few nodded. My brother gave me a quiet look of respect. I continued, Emily and I will no longer be together. The papers are already filed, and tonight is the last time I will ever celebrate an anniversary with her. But don't feel sorry for me, I'm not broken. I'm free. The room stirred with murmurs of agreement. Even her closest friends looked away, ashamed for her. I raised my glass one final time. To truth. To freedom. And to never letting someone else's lies define your worth. The guests clinked glasses softly, though the atmosphere was heavy with shock. Emily, still in the hallway, covered her face and sobbed quietly. I set my glass down, buttoned my jacket, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, I turned back once and said, enjoy the dessert. I'm done here. And with that, I stepped out into the cool night air, feeling lighter than I had in years. In the days that followed, the fallout from that night spread quickly. Word traveled fast, friends told friends, family whispered to relatives, and before long, everyone in our circle knew the truth. Emily tried to do damage control. She reached out to people, claiming I had exaggerated or twisted things. But the evidence had spoken louder than any excuse she could invent. Screenshots don't lie. Neither do hotel bills. Her friends stopped returning her calls. The people who once admired her kept their distance. Even her parents, who had always defended her, barely spoke to her. The more she tried to paint herself as the victim, the more obvious her guilt became. Meanwhile, my life began to change in ways I didn't expect. At first, I felt empty, like a part of me had been ripped away. But slowly, that emptiness turned into relief. No more lies. No more humiliation. No more walking on eggshells, wondering what was real. People reached out to me privately, offering support. My brother invited me over for dinner almost every night. Friends told me they admired how calm and composed I had been when I exposed her. Even her own sister called to say, you deserved better than her. Everyone can see that now. And she was right. For the first time in years, I began to believe it myself. A week later, I heard a knock at my door. When I opened it, Emily stood there, eyes swollen, makeup smeared, holding a small box in her hands. Please, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Just hear me out. Against my better judgment, I let her step inside. She placed the box on the table and opened it, revealing old photos of us, little souvenirs from trips we had taken, and even the wedding band she once proudly wore. Tears streamed down her face. I threw everything away, I know that now. But I'm begging you, don't let this be the end. I'll prove to you that I can change. I'll cut off everyone else, delete everything, whatever it takes. Just, don't leave me like this. I looked at the items in the box, symbols of a life that used to mean something. But to me, they no longer held any weight. You should have thought about that before, I said quietly. Before the lies. Before the nights away. Before mocking me in front of everyone. You didn't just break this marriage, Emily, you buried it. Her knees buckled, and she dropped to the floor, sobbing. "Please. I can't lose you." I stood, my voice cold but steady. "You already did." And with that, I walked to the door, opened it, and waited until she picked up her box and left. The chapter of Emily in my life had finally closed. In the weeks that followed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. No more suspicious late nights, no more hidden phones, no more cruel jokes at my expense. The silence in my home wasn't empty anymore, it was freeing. I threw myself into rebuilding. I spent more time with family, reconnected with old friends, and even picked up hobbies I had long abandoned. Each day that passed, I felt stronger, lighter, more myself than I'd ever been with her. People who had been at that anniversary dinner reached out often. They told me how proud they were of the way I handled everything, not with rage, but with truth. They said I showed strength by exposing her without stooping to her level. Emily, on the other hand, was a shadow of herself. Word spread through our community, and everywhere she went, people remembered what she had done. Invitations stopped coming. Friends disappeared. Her once perfect image shattered beyond repair. One evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, my brother said something that stuck with me: sometimes life doesn't take people away, it reveals who they really are. And she revealed herself long before you ever exposed her. For the first time, I smiled, not with bitterness, but with clarity. I was free, and I wasn't looking back. Months passed, and the storm that once consumed my life finally settled. Emily faded into the background, a ghost from a chapter one had no desire to reopen. People still whispered about what happened that night, but for me, it was no longer about her, it was about me finding myself again. I realized something powerful: love isn't proven by words, or by promises whispered in the dark. It's proven by actions, by loyalty, respect, and the courage to stand by each other even when no one is watching. Emily had none of that. But I did. I had it in the way I handled the truth, in the way I refused to let her lies define me, and in the way I chose freedom over humiliation. Looking back, her joke about her ex being bigger was the spark that exposed everything. She thought she was mocking me. But in the end, she only mocked herself. Because while she traded loyalty for cheap thrills, I walked away with something far more valuable: self-respect. One evening, as I sat quietly, I thought about the future, not with regret, but with hope. I knew one day I'd find someone who valued honesty, someone who wouldn't laugh at my expense but stand beside me with pride. And when that day comes, I'll be ready. Because the past no longer controls me. The truth set me free.